Clean-Flo International. If you're watching this video, odds are it's time to replace your vanes or do a shroud adjustment. So without further ado, why don't we take a closer look and see the steps to complete this. So this is the compressor we'll be working on today. The two tools you'll need will be a 7/16 and a 3/8 socket. You can use a socket wrench today. I'm going to expedite the process a little bit by using an impact gun. You'll also need a 3/16 Allen wrench, and we'll also be using a flathead to help with our adjustment. So the first thing you're going to want to do is loosen these 5 bolts all the way and take them out. Once you get all 5 of those bolts loose, you're going to want to take out these black caps. And then obviously before this whole process, you're going to want to take off your union and disconnect your high temp hose. That way you can do all this. You're just going to remove your muffler box and you're just going to place that off to the side for the time being. And then you get to these 6 bolts. All 6 of these bolts are the 3/8 size. So you can go ahead and take all these out. Once you get those 6 bolts removed, you're just going to pull off the plate. And you're also going to set that off to the side. You want to make sure you keep track of all the bolts you're taking apart. And then we get to this point. So as you can see here, these vanes are going to need some replacing. There's some pieces that are in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on an adjustment as well. So for right now, we're going to take off this cover plate. We're going to put this off to the side. And then what we're going to do next is remove these 2 bolts, or loosen them just a little bit. So before starting the shroud adjustment, obviously if you have put still intact vanes, you're going to want to take them out and place them off to the side. In this case, we're going to clean out these vanes, but these are a little stuck, so we're actually going to remove the whole shroud to get these out. And before you start your shroud adjustment, you're also going to want just a piece of paper nearby, because that's what's going to tell us how big this gap up here has to be. So first we're going to go ahead and we're going to take out these 2 Allen head bolts. They don't come out very far. Once you get both of those loose, we're just going to pull this off. Set it down. We're just going to get this nice little clean. So once you get all your vane dust cleaned out, it's always good to have a can of compressed air nearby. We have an air compressor in the warehouse, so I've already blown this out, and it's just good to blow out the remaining dust. And you just want to make sure that you clean out whatever vane dust is also on your shroud. As you can see, it gets a little bit dirty. I usually like to take a damp paper towel and go around and try and collect some of this dust. Once you get all the dust out, I recommend keeping the bolts in there when you take them off. That way you know which way this goes back on. I'll call these ears. You want these 2 ears to match up here. So we're just going to go ahead and place this on there. And we're not going to tighten these all the way. We can tighten them all the way and then just back off a hair on both sides. There we go. And now we're ready to do our shroud adjustment. We're going to zoom in. That way we can get a better look at this gap and exactly how to measure that gap. So now that we got a little bit closer of a look, you can see that this gap is completely closed. If you take your piece of paper and you run it up, you can feel that this piece of paper isn't going to go through that gap at all. So what we're going to need to do is raise this whole shroud up a little bit. And to do that, I usually like to use just any screwdriver, anything that gives me a little bit of leverage and a little bit more control. So what I'm going to do is stick this underneath of the shroud and lift up just the slightest bit. As you can see, that gap opened up a little bit. I can now turn the rotor. So I'm going to put this piece of paper through. As you can see, that piece of paper goes all the way through, so I'm going to keep dropping it down little by little. So right there, I went down too far, so I'm going to raise it up a little bit more. And that looks like it's going to be good. So I'm going to take my Allen wrench, and I'm just going to tighten up one of these bolts. Get that first one nice and tight. You can remove your screwdriver. And then once you do that, you're just going to want to make sure A, your rotor still spins, and B, your piece of paper can slide all the way through that little gap. So here we have a very nice spaced shroud, and we're just going to want to tighten those up. That way this doesn't have the ability to move at all. And as you can see, that gap is just a tiny bit bigger from what it was before. So now we're going to get back into the putting it all back together piece of it. So at this point in time, if you needed new vanes as well, you put your vanes in. They only go in one way. I'll show you this broken vane real quick. So if you look at the angle, but you can see there's that angle on the top, and there's this angle here, and you're going to want to line that angle up. That way it goes in smooth. If you try and put it, it won't go in the other way. No, it will go in the other way, but you'll be able to tell. And I usually like to make it so that you're putting in this piece first, rounding it, put in this piece, round it, put in this piece. But this compressor is actually not getting vanes. This compressor is a bad compressor, so they're actually getting a new one. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the plate we took off. We're just going to push that back on. Just like that. If you're particular like I am, we'll make the Clean-Flo logo right in the middle. And then we're going to grab our mounting plate. We're just going to slide this back in, making sure all of the bolts make their holes. And then usually what I like to do is just give it a 1 or 2 turn by hand, make sure the threads are in there, that way you don't cross thread them. And then this next part is where you would get your socket wrench with your 3/8 socket and tighten it up. You don't want it too tight, but you want it tight enough. Once I complete the star pattern, I'm just going to go around one more time. You can tell it's repositioned a little bit. I'm going to go around one more time, give them all a nice tight. Once you get all of those tight, you're going to grab your muffler plate, your muffler box, and you're going to put that on. Again, this is where you're going to want to get your 7/16 bit. Go around. This one I usually like to tighten the center first, and then kind of work my way down. Then go around one more time. And you're also at this point going to want to replace your end caps. This side gets no felt because we've taken the filter and made it external. You're just going to want to make sure that those O-rings right here seat properly in the divot on the muffler box. At this point, you've completed your shroud adjustment and vane replacement. You're going to want to reinstall your compressor and put your union back together, and just make sure that your union's nice and tight. We usually like to use a pipe wrench and channel locks just to make sure it gets a nice bite. And your aeration system should be ready to go. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us, 610-431-1934. I'll put the number down here. Any other questions, you can also email Clean-Flo at the info@clean-flo.com email. Thank you.